Before we start, I just wanted to issue a gentle note that this episode includes conversations around suicide, grief, trauma, and mental health struggles. Hi, it's Nikki, and welcome back to Live a Little, your cozy corner of the internet where we discuss all of the in between parts of life, the messy, honest, and unfiltered parts where you may not always have that person to talk to about them, but we do it all judgment free around here. This is an episode that is especially important to me and one that I have been wanting to do for a very long time with someone that I admire very much. Today, I'm joined by mental health advocate and campaigner Ben West.
Oh, thank you, Nikki. It's
Oh my
such a
God,
pleasure to
of
be here.
course. I feel like we've kind of been social media friends for a while
Yeah,
now,
yeah.
and I've always been like the biggest admirer and just had such admiration for everything you're doing. And so I'm just, yeah, thank you so much for coming and doing this.
Likewise with you. I mean, it's so great everything you do, and sort of giving people space to have difficult conversations and normalizing a lot of the stuff. And I think a lot of what we both do is quite similar. So,
It really
it's
is.
just such a pleasure to be here
I know,
talking to you.
yeah. You're actually my first male on the podcast. And
Yay!
if I had to have a man to come on and do the podcast, I knew I wanted it for you
Oh,
first. It
bless you.
depends
That's
on
very kind.
everything you're doing. It's instilling, we've just been speaking about it. It's instilling hope and humanity, and it's a breath of fresh air. And it's, it's the most important and pressing issue really that's going on today. I actually, when I was doing kind of my little bits of research on you, I realized that we're both Pride of Britain and Diana Award winners.
Are you? Oh, amazing.
Yeah,
That's so funny.
I
When
know.
were you Diana Award?
Diana Award was 20, really like a while ago now, 2015.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Because
ages
I was
ago.
2019, I think.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And then Pride of Britain was 2016.
Okay, I think I was 2019 as well
Did
for me.
did any celebrities or anyone give you your award?
No, so I got the sort of fundraiser of the year and then went
Amazing.
into the pool for the main one, but didn't
Wow.
get the main one. But obviously, yeah, I mean, you'd been at the
Yeah,
event. It's a pretty
100%.
amazing event. So
Yeah.
you meet sort of all the celebrities you've wanted to meet.
I know
I'm a
it is.
big Spurs fan,
Oh
Tottenham's
my God,
fan,
same.
and so all of the are you
Yeah.
all of the
If you said Arsenal, I mean, I would have still
yeah,
gone on with the
we wouldn't have
podcast,
done this.
but
So like Harry Kane was there
oh
and all
no
these.
way.
Yeah, so I got a good photo of Harry and so that was really good. That was really cool. But yeah, it's an amazing thing. This world is so great, isn't it? Where you've got to get the right people. From my point of view, you, me, there's a lots of people I follow that are really doing good work, and it's so nice when they get into those rooms where the
Totally.
celebrities, those sort of
Yeah.
big figures, go, actually, these people are quite cool and they deserve a little bit of
Exactly.
recognition.
And also, I think sometimes these award ceremonies can come about who's there in
Yeah,
terms of the celebrity names. But actually, what's different about something like the Pride of Britain Awards is that the celebrities are going for, the award
yeah,
recipients. And I remember when I got my awards, like they all stood up and clapped, and there was celebrities crying. And actually, it's quite humanizing.
mm,
It puts you all on like a level playing field, and it reminds them that okay, you might be a singer, you might be a actor, you might have done a footballer,
yeah,
you may have done some incredible things, but actually, these are the people that are really doing the most
yeah,
human and incredible things. Like that's what it actually means to achieve
yeah.
things.
Who did you get when you got your award on stage?
I got so it's a funny story about this. I was obsessed with, well, I still am, but I just don't have so much time anymore. I was obsessed with baking when I was younger. I was actually on like the children's version of Bake Off and won it when I was
Right,
younger.
did you?
Yeah,
That's so
literal
great.
side quest.
Yeah,
I went
that's
on,
amazing.
got like this cake stand trophy.
Yeah,
The people that gave me my award were Jamie Oliver, Mary Berry, and like Candice Owen, who'd won the Bake Off that year.
that's amazing.
Yeah, so
That's
those
that's such a good group of
I
people to give you an
know.
award.
Yeah, but it's so funny because Mary Berry was like, "Oh, the Bake Off, better watch out." And that year, I just filmed Junior Bake Off and won, but I couldn't say anything.
Yeah,
So
of
I remember being
course.
like on the stage, like,
Even to the queen of baking herself, you
"I
couldn't say
know,
anything.
I know,
Oh,
I know." And
tough.
then I wound up doing my work experience. You do in year 10
Yeah.
with Jamie Oliver,
Oh,
like at
amazing.
he
Yeah,
was
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
HQ, and he just
Yeah,
helped him with some food styling
that's
stuff.
so
So
good.
yeah, it's really nice to. I think also to be doing something like that, both of us have that commonality of starting, our advocacy and our campaigning so young that it's very kind of different than starting, I think, slightly later in life in so many different ways.
Mm.
firstly, I'd like to just do a kind of check-in. How has your week been? How are you doing?
My week has been it's been good. It's been exhausting.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. Like the work, life at the moment is very, very tiring. As you all know, I think when something does well on social media, it's obviously a good thing, but it's quite unexpected sometimes, and it just sort of floods your workload. So I was already working to capacity, and now I've got a lot of stuff
Oh
to
my
do,
gosh.
and I've just started training for London Marathon. So it's like
Just to
it's
add
quite a
something
lot of
else
stuff,
on.
which is
Yeah.
good. I mean,
No, it's an
like I
incredible
feel
thing.
exhausted, but I feel very. I was just saying to my girlfriend the other day, I'm like, just feel so happy at the moment.
Mm.
And I don't know, I've been like that for a number of years where I just love what I do, and I really, really love what I've created and what I do now. But I don't think I've ever felt this like settled and feel so like proud of myself and happy with what I've done, and just really I just really, really like waking up and getting on with my work and getting
Yeah.
on with my day, which sounds really deep, but
No.
I'm tired for the right reasons.
Yeah, because it's work that is so purposeful and that matters so much. I think it's actually very rare that people have such a reason and purpose to
Yeah.
get up for and to work for. A lot, I think that's almost something that people wish for in life, is to feel like they are doing something that fulfills them in a way that's so much deeper than them
Yeah.
and bigger than them. And you're doing exactly that. So you should be so proud of
Thank you.
yourself. And sometimes I think in amongst when we're going through these big things, it's really actually hard to take in and
Mhm.
comprehend them while they're kind of at their biggest,
Yeah.
because especially that you didn't expect, you
Yeah.
know, how everything has kind of blown up with reasons to stay, which has just been so incredible to
Oh,
watch and
bless you.
so deserved. Like, if anything deserves the attention that it's getting, it's this. Truly, it deserves everything and more. But I think equally, yeah, it is kind of like you're on a treadmill and you're
Hmm.
kind of just find like at a steady pace sort of that you're walking at, and then suddenly it's just someone is from an external place pushing a button, and then you're suddenly having to kind of catch up
Yeah.
with that speed.
Yeah, you're right. And
Yeah.
unlike you, I am really not very good at social media. I have to try so hard to work out like what I'm
I
doing.
honestly like still don't feel like I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I feel like that's almost the thing with this job, is that there is no one really, there's no boss that's telling you you're doing well.
Yep.
There's no one that's really like kind of fulfilling that cup that's like, well done,
Yeah.
keep going.
Yeah.
And there is of course people in terms of like the work we do and the support we get and in that way, but no one kind of like above you that's being like, yeah, you're doing
Yeah.
well, or you're doing it the right way, keep going.
Yeah.
I think that's what's sometimes hard, is you're constantly having to kind of self fulfill that, to be massive. Yeah,
Massively.
this is going okay, has to
Mm.
keep going. I have to, like, you also have to build that motivation in yourself to keep going. And I think, like you kind of said, when something becomes your job, it's incredible because it's something that, you love doing and brings you purpose, but equally it's then something that you have to, keep doing, which can sometimes, especially with your work, it being such a incredible premise, but something that is a holds so much weight.
Yeah.
It's something that is, yeah, difficult to, I'm sure, carry on your shoulders every day, because it's your connection to people that follow you, and who have learned about reasons to stay, and all the work you do and your story.
Mm.
It's a slightly different feat to someone who is sharing makeup tutorials or kicking a football on social media. And
Yeah.
it's a very different responsibility, I'm sure you feel like you have, which I'm sure can feel quite incredible but heavy at times.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, for those people that don't know, I guess, really, my story begins when my little brother Sam was diagnosed with depression when we were both at school. And he very sadly took his own life when he was 15 years old, and I was 17. And sort of, I very quickly went into mental health campaigning because I realized that what happened shouldn't have happened, and
Yeah.
we could do stuff to change that. But I guess, and I'm sure you'll know this, but it's really a weird feeling when you start doing that campaigning work for something that matters so deeply to you, and has actually like personally affected you so badly, because it feels a little bit like you get stuck in that world
Mhm.
and you can't really escape the bad stuff because you're constantly talking about the bad stuff.
Yeah.
And so I found it really hard over the years to try and work out what that balance is of like, do I enjoy this? And actually that's where Reasons to Stay came from, because I thought I just want to do something positive,
Mhm.
because for my campaigning work, it's obviously hugely positive because it makes change, but
Yeah.
it's always talking about government policy
Of course.
and talking about suicides and talking about the rates going up. And that's important to talk about, but it's really sad. And I just wanted to launch something that went, this is a happy, good, positive
It's a
thing,
bright light in the world. Honestly, it
and it
is
makes
like,
you feel better then to be
yeah.
part of it. And I know I'm sure you've gone on a similar sort of journey of like, how do you not just focus on the bad bits, but actually turn it into something that's positive and makes you feel good
Definitely.
by being
Yeah.
part of it.
Yeah.
So it's been a really strange 8 years,
No, I can.
but it's
Yeah.
been, like I think about this a lot, where I think back to how I was when I was 17.
Mm.
Sam died. My life was in bits. I was in a really bad place. It was not someone I particularly liked looking back at it. And now, like, I just absolutely love what I do. And the fact that I can come into a room here and talk to you and be part of these sorts of conversations and do the work that I get to do is just such a privilege. And I love it so much.
It's something that is so life altering. It's life shattering, actually. Everything, I think, when you go through something so big, there is a before you and there is an after you. There is no in between. You can never remain the same person after something that massive happens and world shattering happens. And it's something that is the unthinkable, really.
Yeah.
But what you've been able to do with that, like, I know that anyone who has been struggling mentally, or has been looking for a reason to stay, has found your videos and seen what you're doing, or seen the website, and has felt even more hopeful. And so I
Hmm.
think there's this element of, exactly like you can relate to, where sometimes you are trying to be what that past version of yourself, and also your brother would have needed at that time.
Yeah.
And I think there's an element of, when something has happened and it's felt so uncontrollable and out of your control, and it's done, and this thing's been taken away from you, which has been like such a massive part of your life and your identity and who you are. There is no solution. It's something that's happened. I think sometimes then what you do after that can heal you slightly.
Yeah.
Being able to create actions and do things in different ways after, it's helping other people, is almost also keeping alive Sam
Yeah,
and the
yeah,
memory of
yeah,
Sam.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It is, and I think, I said this in an article that I wrote the other week. It's a really weird feeling, but I feel closer to Sam than I ever was when he was alive, because I feel like I log onto my computer and start my work, and
Yeah.
he's there. Like it's a really lovely feeling to know that you're doing something that really mattered to him. Because out of the two of us, he was the first to be a mental health campaigner. He cared so deeply about people, and he was going through a really tough time when he was diagnosed with depression while he was still at school. And he used to put these posters up around school. No one knew this was him doing it, but these posters started going up around school that explained what depression was and explained what anxiety was, because he just wanted other people to be educated, because that he wanted the sort of world to change and education to improve. But I think a big part of it was he wanted other people that were going through that to feel less alone,
Yeah.
because someone was putting these posters up. Unfortunately, Sam died, and I picked up that baton, and I've tried to do what I think he would have done. So unfortunately for the world, you've got the second best option. But I'll do my best to do what I think he would have done, and I think all the work I've done so far, he would get his approval.
You're doing him so proud. Like, I
Thank
mean,
you.
of course, I can't speak for him, but I'm sure doing everyone who knows you so proud. Like, every day when I see what you're doing, I'm just in complete adoration and admiration of what you're doing. And so I think this is literally the best way that you could commemorate him.
Thank you.
Truly, it's his legacy. I think
Thank
if
you.
it could be anything, honestly, it really is. And I think a lot of people who have learned about Sam
Mm.
know him through obviously what's happened.
Yeah.
But I would love to know, as someone who's not met
Yeah.
Sam and hearing how incredible he is, I would love to know what he was like and what your relationship was like, what you love doing together.
Because this is what's really sad about suicide, because it's so awful and he was so young. It sort of defines his whole life.
Yeah.
And Sam should not be defined by his 15 years, should not be defined by 15 minutes, right? So I'm so glad you asked. Sam was hilarious. I mean, he was the funniest person I know. He had an awful sense of humor. in that you never quite knew whether you were allowed to laugh and whether that was okay to laugh, find funny. Very, very, very talented creatively, which we never really. There's maybe one example of where we bonded over that because I am the absolute opposite. I am incredibly uncreative.
You did engineering, didn't
I
you?
didn't. I went
Yeah.
to uni, did engineering. I'm getting better at it now, but the idea of painting and draw. I'm still
Yeah.
horrific at drawing.
I'm drawing a stick man if I try to draw.
Stick man or a horse with just four blobs. Yeah, that's my sort of creative level. Sam, he had these canvases and he just paint landscapes, but it was never like a realistic landscape. It was always these amazing colors. So there's this one picture that's like a hill in a sunset, and it's just fiery. It's just like it's ignited. You put it in any gallery and it would just be like, wow, that's really impressive. And then you sort of understand it's made by a 14-year-old. You're like, wow, that's impressive. He also composed his own music. He was a big fan of film scores, so Hans Zimmer and people like that. And he would digitally compose his own music. So he did he did it's some amazing music that he just made himself. So talented. He did a lot of that work, and I think that's one thing that I found really sad when Sam died was I spent a long time looking through his stuff and trying to understand what happened, and you sort of flick through his art scrapbook, and it's just very sad because you've got all these incredible drawings and these incredible sketches and these ideas and his brain just in a sketchbook, and then you get halfway through and the rest of the page is just blank pages. And I often think with Sam, it's like there were so many blank pages that are left behind, and it would have been quite extraordinary to see what would have filled those blank pages.
Yeah.
Because that man was very, very talented. And I think sometimes with me and what happened to Sam, I think there's obviously the grief of what we lost, but his life was so short. Most of my grief is about what he lost, and the opportunities that he lost. And I know I've showed some of his work to people at Disney, and they've gone, this is actually, we're not just saying it, but it's actually very impressive. So he was great. He was really, really talented. And I said there was one example of us that bonding over his creatives. I think we had one day where he wanted me and Tom's my younger brother, to be involved in some like vocal thing. So we had this mic set up, and I was like, he said, just make these sound
You're like,
effects.
what are you roping me into?
Yeah. So, and it was so funny. It was just me and Tom trying to do sound effects into this microphone that he was using for something.
So creative.
So
Like,
creative.
literally every creative form you can think.
Yeah, he was just a very creative brain. But unfortunately, and not to bring it back to the campaigning work, but
Yeah, of course.
the year Sam died, we went to a state school, so a government school, and they cut the budget. So something had to go, and they took art and music off the curriculum. And so really what that said to Sam was, that thing that you're good at doesn't really matter. And I think he probably felt that really deeply.
Yeah.
And I think, we've seen especially in lockdown, when people talked about the creative industries, I think we saw the effect of what that does. Now, when I look at who I work with, the most talented and the best people I get to work with are all creatives. And so I think it was really sad that I think Sam was under the impression that the thing he was good at wasn't actually important in the world. And actually the opposite's true. The world is a pretty boring place without creatives.
And the beautiful thing about creatives is that it's all well and good being good at math or being good at, science. Of course, we need those things to be human, to function later in life. But actually, creative brains are the most clever, intellectual brains you could ever meet.
Yeah.
And it is so sad that in school, especially, that is not something that's celebrated.
Yeah.
And therefore, as a byproduct, you don't feel, like you said, that's not something that if you then feel is worth putting time into or is acknowledged as something worthy, and they're basically saying this doesn't matter, then that completely relates to you.
Yeah.
And I think that's, I could talk about, we will get into the school system a little bit, and obviously how that reflects in mental health. I'd love to know, in terms of just mental health being a phrase and being a part of your life from such an early age. Literally, I remember you saying as early as even 3 or 5 kids are, aware of their mental health and being affected by mental health issues, and it's getting earlier and earlier, as the years go on, unfortunately. When was that something that kind of imparted itself in your life, even in not when things started affecting Sam, but even before that? Like, what did mental health mean to you growing up?
Nothing. I
Yeah.
mean, I really, really had no idea what that was at all. So I never got taught about mental health in school. The first time I ever, I think, and I can't be 100% sure, but I think the first time I ever heard the word depression was when my mum told me that Sam had been diagnosed with it. And that shouldn't be the case. So that really gives you an idea of how little I knew about all of this stuff. Mental health was just not something I really had any idea about. It's not something I believed in. I was quite a masculine boy at school as well. I feel like I had to, I don't know where it came from, but I wanted to give off like a masculine energy. And so I remember weirdly, I didn't like hugs, which is
Wow.
funny because I absolutely love a hug now.
Yeah, me too.
But my friend group used to come in the mornings and we'd hug. And I remember just standing with my hands by my sides, not reciprocating the hug. And I was in the army cadets at school. Like I really wanted to give off this hard
I think a
masculine
lot of
vibe.
boys do at that
They
age.
do.
Yeah.
And so I think my sort of understanding of emotions came from a point of view of stoicism and going, no, we're not dealing with that. That's soft or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I really just had no idea what mental health was and no respect really for that side of things. I remember my mum told me that Sam had been diagnosed with depression, and I just went, how can you be diagnosed with feeling sad? It doesn't make sense. Didn't make sense to me. Before that, I just had no idea, as most 17-year-olds
Yeah,
do.
because if you're not, you're still so young at that age, but equally it's something that you could have already spent years being affected by.
Yeah.
When I was watching, things about you, you said that by 18, if someone has a mental health issue or is going to be affected by mental health, it's like 75% of
Yeah.
people will be by 18.
Yeah. So 75% of all mental health conditions start by the age of 18, and 50% start
It's
by the age of
crazy.
15. So really and look, I'm I'm not a researcher, so I'll just talk about the research that's happened.
Yeah.
But what we know is a lot of these problems arise during puberty, where the brain's rewiring and we've all been there, right? I mean, it's not a particularly nice
No,
time
it isn't.
in your
If
life.
anything, you're like, I'm going to look forward to this not being my life right now.
Exactly. So it's really difficult, but like in a brain sense, that gives a lot of opportunities for things to go wrong.
Yeah.
And so that's why I think why we see that 50% before 15. Really interestingly though, because you mentioned there about people as young as 3. When I was starting this work, I remember really vividly, I met a clinical psychologist, a child clinical psychologist, and I was like, what's the youngest age patient that you've had to deal with? And I was expecting her to sort of be like 12, 13. And she was just like, 3, self-harming 3-year-olds, 5-year-olds. I was just like, and then this is off the back of me. I remember having a conversation with a school once about doing a talk for some primary school children. And they were like, oh, I think they're a bit young for this conversation. So maybe we'll do it with the sixth formers. I was just like,
Sixth formers?
by sixth form. So if you're thinking about what I've just said, if you're teaching mental health to a group older than 15, then half of the people that are going to experience a mental health problem already have it.
Yeah.
So unless you're creating frameworks for education that are focused on primary age children, then, and that's where we learn. I mean, you wouldn't wait until someone's 15 to start teaching them how to read and write.
Oh, exactly.
You start that, and it's the same with emotional learning. It's like you've got to start that young. So yeah, that was bad, and I think we've got to try and understand how all of this fits into a wider education system.
Yeah.
We've got to learn about maths. You've got to learn about reading and writing and English language. You've also it doesn't make any sense not to learn about the thing in your head.
It's it really is incomprehensible that this isn't something that isn't like even just kind of chucked into PSHE for 1 hour and then it's like, okay, box tick, we've done our job. It's like this should be an actual lesson. If you're going to talk so much about and put so much pressure on and onus on the academic stuff, which is the maths, the English, the teaching Pythagoras, which I've shock horror
Never
not
used.
used since,
Yeah.
literally not
Yeah.
used or needed, algebra, coding, like never
Yeah.
needed it. Then the one thing that we all have in common as humans and will all be affected by, you know, every single person in an assembly hall will be affected directly or indirectly by mental health at some point in their life. Why is this not something that we aren't learning from as soon as possible to then prevent,
Yeah.
you know, things happening like what happened to Sam and so many other children, even if it's not necessarily, you know, that it's even just the language around mental health. Why is it something that we're all affected by, but is still so taboo?
Yeah.
Like it's, you know, also eggshell walked around. I think if people had the tools and the language, also removing that shame, I think so much of mental health still has so much shame around it for no reason, that people are almost scared to admit that. I think especially men scared to admit that they
Yeah.
can't just get on with things and, you know, be a man, which literally that is the load of rubbish in the first place anyway.
Yeah.
But I think there's a level of humans are scared to admit I'm struggling and actually I need help outside of what I can give myself.
Yeah, it's really difficult. And you're right, it's particularly for men. I also think one of the things that's important is obviously we've got to teach about mental health because we want to avoid bad things happening.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, most of us won't ever experience a mental health condition, right?
Yeah.
So if 25% of people experience a mental health condition each year, 75% don't. And I think one way of thinking is that those 75% of people are healthy and happy.
Yeah.
The best time to learn how to look after your mental health is when you're healthy and happy.
Yeah.
And so I am very, very good now at looking after myself. And I've not got a mental health condition, but I know that now if I do, I've got all of those habits that I've built
It's the
that I can then look
proactivity,
after. So I
yeah.
think just because you're not struggling does not mean you shouldn't also be looking at
Mhm.
those resources and learning about your own brain or going to counseling.
Yeah.
If you have the money, I mean, it's one of the best.
Yeah, I've been in and
It's
out of therapy since I was like 7
I think
years
it's the
old.
best money I've ever
Yeah,
spent on
yeah.
anything in my entire life. Yeah, and I think people have this assumption of we only need to look at it or be interested in it when we're ill.
It's that physical health lens of being like, I only need to go to the doctor if there's a
Yes.
problem.
Because
you know?
mental health is not mental illness.
Exactly.
And so I think we need to be much better at understanding the difference between those two things. It's slightly annoying actually that we use the word mental health because you would never come into a podcast and say, I'm a physical health campaigner. I mean,
No.
it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
It's such an enormously vast topic, but at the very core of it, we're talking about life satisfaction, how someone feels, on the majority of the sort of mental illness discussion is about depression, anxiety, eating disorders. But you could also go into what are called serious mental illnesses like bipolar and schizophrenia and psychosis, and so it's a hugely complex area.
Yeah.
But I think we've got to slightly be better at understanding the difference between those things. And obviously everyone has mental health, and we can all improve that. No
Yeah.
matter what you're doing,
Yeah,
you can learn something about your
definitely.
own brain.
Yeah.
So from my point of view, it's about how do you improve the health of people that are already healthy, and how do you provide intervention and clinical support for those people who are unwell.
Yeah.
And it's those two things have to happen in
Yeah.
parallel. It is getting worse because one of the other things that we've got to realize is that for whatever reason, people are getting diagnosed with more at a younger age. And there's a few different ways of explaining that. I mean, one that I think is really interesting for people is that the age of onset for puberty amongst girls, which is a physiological process, is getting younger.
Oh,
So
wow.
it used to be around 15,
Yeah.
and it's now 12. And we can measure that. That's it's heavily researched, and that we can show that in the Western world that is a change that's happened. The sort of processes that our bodies are going through is getting younger, and there's lots of different potential reasons for that. Diet, environment,
Social media.
social
Yeah.
media, the forever chemicals, and those sorts of things that are now everywhere. Those are all having physiological impact on the way we live. So there's loads of different potential reasons this is getting younger and younger, but we have to respond to that by going, we need to, if we're healthy, let's stay healthy. If people are unwell, they need better access to support, better access to education, and a better environment that allows people to recover. At the moment, you've got a situation where we just focus so much on people not getting more unwell.
Yeah.
And there's
Yeah.
very little hope for recovery, because it's all just
Yeah.
about monitoring symptoms and giving people ways of sort of coping with things not getting worse.
No, exactly that. And I think the difficulty also is that kids are going to be at school for the majority of it's the place they're actually going to spend more time than their home.
Yeah.
Then why is I completely get it's not the onus isn't just on one person, it's society as a whole. It's it's parents, it's schools, it's the government, it's so many different things. Equally, if that's where kids are going to be spending most of their time, their primitive formative years, puberty, all of that, then why is it not such an important part instilled in
Mhm.
the curriculum at school? It's really, I mean, when you go into schools or are speaking to kind of policymakers, what is the feedback? What are you coming up against?
This is going to sound a bit boring because everyone gives this answer, but it is resources.
Yeah,
I mean, there's a real lack of
it
resources.
is.
And when I've been to some schools that are very well resourced, particularly in the sort of private sector, not that all private schools are well resourced, because a lot of them are struggling as well. But when you go to some that are really good and you look at what is possible,
Yeah.
when you have control over your curriculum to a certain level, when you have control over the support and the training that teachers get, you can do some amazing things. There are a lot of schools though that, yeah, some classrooms in some schools I go to have been unusable for years because there's a leak that they haven't been able to fix. Or I've been to one school where there's just a window that's got cardboard all over it, and it's just broken
Exactly.
and it's
Yeah.
covered because they can't afford to fix the window. So you're really talking about a system that has absolutely nothing left to
Yeah.
flex.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to sort of trying to change the school, you can't do that because change requires effort and time and money and resource.
Exactly.
And so what I'm saying, what we need to be looking at is over the next sort of 20 to 50 years is having an education system that prioritizes social emotional learning as opposed to academic
Yeah.
learning. At the moment, what we have is an academic education pathway that goes, we're going to teach you all these academic subjects, and social emotional learning becomes sort of a bolt on. What we really need is an education
The other way
structure that
round.
focuses on the
Yeah.
emotional side of things, makes you into a really healthy, happy person, and then goes, you'd be really good at this.
Yeah.
Let's now teach you about maths and English and all these really important skills that you have to learn. And if you're really good at one, then let's take you to the next level and go a little bit deeper into those. I often think with this conversation as well, if you were to go into a hospital in the 1950s and compare it to a hospital now, you wouldn't recognize it.
No.
Staff in the hospital from the 1950s wouldn't be able to be a
No.
nurse in the
Yeah.
current hospital. If you took a teacher from 1950s and put them into a classroom now, they'd be able to do it. It's a very
Yeah.
similar, we haven't really had any radical change in
No.
teaching over that time. And I think what we really need, and I know everyone says this, but what we really, really need is to just reframe what education means. And in my opinion, all of my work is focused around training teachers, because if you can start to train teachers better, eventually they're going to be leading the education sector.
Yeah.
And if they're better educated, they're going to make better decisions.
Yeah.
And so slowly it filters in, and then you're in the best possible position to go, right, we know it works with teachers, we've got a healthy, well-educated workforce. Now we can start actually going, is there a better way of designing a school?
Yeah.
And there are some brilliant schools that are focusing on social emotional learning, and it's working really well. And
Yeah.
the more evidence we get for that, the better the case is. So when we can go to the Department for Education and go, look at this, it works. Now let's slowly try and implement more change over more schools over the years.
It's definitely such a process. And I think what I've learned is also, like you said, it should be this progressive thing where you're doing it before it gets to that point
Yeah.
of no return. And I think that's exactly the example where if Sam had resources or understood that mental health wasn't something that he should be ashamed of,
Yeah.
or felt less alone in that it was being talked about openly, shows it in the fact that he wanted other people to feel less alone.
And also, it's just about giving people a bit of understanding.
That's it.
Sam was convinced that once you got depression, you never don't have
Yeah.
depression. And so he basically convinced himself that he was at this level
Yeah.
and could never get back up to
Yeah.
this level.
I hope you enjoyed this episode. It is such an important one. Make sure to tune back in next week for part 2 with Ben West.